Most people believe that if they just work hard, save a little money, and stay loyal to their jobs, one day they'll finally break free from financial struggle. But here's the harsh truth. The middle class is a trap. It's not a stepping stone to wealth. It's a carefully designed cage, with invisible bars built from debt, consumerism, and comfort. And once you're inside, very few ever escape. Think about it. You've been told your entire life to get good grades, get a good job, and you'll be secure. But secure from what? A life of endless bills? A mortgage that ties you down for 30 years? A paycheck that barely stretches far enough to cover rent, groceries, and gas? The so-called middle-class dream is nothing more than a treadmill, where you run endlessly but never truly move forward. And here's the part nobody dares to tell you. The system isn't broken. It was designed this way. Society doesn't want millions of wealthy people walking around. It needs obedient workers who will pay taxes, take loans, and keep the machine running. The middle class exists to fund the lifestyles of the rich while keeping you just comfortable enough not to rebel. But let me ask you a serious question. If working 40 hours a week for 40 years could truly make you wealthy, wouldn't most people be rich by now? Why is it that after decades of hard work, millions retire broke, stressed, and dependent on a pension that barely covers survival? Why do most families drown in debt the moment a medical emergency, job loss, or unexpected expense hits? Here's the truth. The middle class is not failing you. It is trapping you, by design. The harsh truth is that if you want to escape it, you can't play by the rules they gave you. You need a new set of rules. And in this video, we're going to break them down, step by step. 10 life-changing shifts that separate those who stay stuck in the middle class from those who rise above it. But before we dive in, I want you to sit with this thought. If nothing changes, 10 years from now, you'll be in the exact same position you are today. Still working, still stressing, still wondering why true wealth feels so far away. So, are you ready to break free? Step 1. They trade time for money instead of building assets. The middle class has been trained to believe that a paycheck is the ultimate reward. They wake up early, rush to work, spend 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours trading their life energy for a wage that barely covers their bills. But here's the truth. As long as your income depends on your time, you will never be free. Because time is the one resource you can never scale. You can't work 48 hours in a day. You can't duplicate yourself. And once your time runs out, so does your income. The wealthy understand this secret early. They focus on building assets, systems, businesses, investments that continue to produce money whether they are working or not. That's why Warren Buffett famously said, "If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die." Yet the middle class ignores this wisdom, clinging to the false security of their monthly salary. Think about it. If you stopped working tomorrow, how long would your lifestyle last? For most middle-class families, the answer is terrifying. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. That's not wealth, that's survival. The harsh truth is, until you break free from the time for money trap, you'll never escape the middle class. Step 2. They confuse comfort with security. The middle class loves comfort. The paycheck comes in, the bills get paid. Maybe there's enough left over for takeout, a Netflix subscription, or a vacation once a year. And that comfort tricks them into thinking they are secure. Yeah. But let me be brutally honest. Comfort is the biggest enemy of growth. Comfort makes you settle. Comfort makes you stop chasing more. Comfort convinces you that things are good enough, even when deep down, you know you're stuck. True security doesn't come from a steady paycheck. It comes from freedom, from knowing you're not dependent on a boss, an economy, or a government to survive. The middle class clings to their jobs, their small savings accounts, and their borrowed lifestyles, thinking they're safe. But the moment the economy crashes, the company downsizes, or inflation eats their paycheck, their security evaporates overnight. Wealthy people understand that comfort is a trap. That's why they embrace calculated risks, invest in themselves, and constantly build new streams of income. Comfort feels nice, but it costs the middle class their freedom. Step 3. They buy liabilities, not assets. The middle class loves to buy things that look rich but keep them poor. The shiny car with the monthly payment, The big house with the crushing mortgage, the latest gadgets on credit. They call it living the dream. But in reality, they're digging their own financial grave. Why? Because these are not assets. They are liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket every single month. The wealthy play a completely different game. They buy assets first, real estate, stocks, businesses that put money into their pocket. And only when those assets generate enough income, they use that money to buy luxuries. The middle class does the opposite. They buy luxuries first, hoping someday they'll have enough left over to invest. Spoiler alert, they never do. Here's the harsh truth. Every time you finance a car, swipe your credit card for things you don't need, or stretch yourself thin to look successful, you are chaining yourself to the middle-class treadmill. If you want out, you must adopt the mindset of the wealthy. Assets first, luxuries later. Step 4. They fear risk but don't realize. Staying the same is the biggest risk of all. The middle class has been conditioned to fear failure. They're terrified of losing money, terrified of rejection, terrified of stepping out of line. So they stay in their lane, do what they're told, and play it safe. But here's the harsh truth. Playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do. Why? Because the world is constantly changing. Technology evolves, economies shift, industries collapse. The job you think is secure today may not exist tomorrow. Playing it safe guarantees you stay vulnerable. The wealthy know this. That's why they take risks, but not blind ones. They take calculated risks, ones where the upside is far greater than the downside. Meanwhile, the middle class avoids risk, only to watch inflation silently rob them. Taxes eat their earnings and debt pile up. By the time they realize that safety was an illusion, it's too late. If you want to escape the middle class, you must stop fearing risk and start fearing mediocrity. Because the biggest risk is not trying at all. Step 5. They think like consumers instead of owners. The middle class has been programmed to think like consumers. They see everything in terms of what they can buy, not what they can build. They line up for the newest iPhone, the latest fashion brand, or the hottest gadget, but they never stop to ask, what if I owned the company that sells these things instead of just buying from it? That's the difference between consumers and owners. The middle class spends their lives consuming, while the wealthy focus on owning. They buy stocks in the companies everyone else buys products from. They build businesses that create the very services the middle class can't live without. And slowly, ownership makes them richer, while consumerism keeps everyone else broke. Here's the reality. The middle class will spend a lifetime funding Apple, Nike, Starbucks, Netflix, and Amazon without ever owning a single share. The wealthy flip the script. They ask, why just buy the product when I can buy the company? Until you stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like an owner, you'll remain exactly where the system wants you, stuck in the middle. Step 6. They depend on a single source of income. The middle class often lives with one fragile lifeline: their job. Every bill, every meal, every dream is tied to that one paycheck. Lose the job, lose everything. That's why job loss feels like the end of the world for them. But here's the harsh truth. Depending on a single source of income is financial suicide in slow motion. The wealthy never rely on just one stream. They build multiple rivers of money flowing into their life. Investments, businesses, royalties, dividends. Even if one dries up, others continue to flow. That's why they sleep at night while the middle class stays awake worrying about layoffs and recessions. When the pandemic hit, millions of people realized too late that their one paycheck wasn't enough. Some were wiped out overnight, while the wealthy pivoted, adapted, and kept growing because they weren't tied to a single income stream. Escaping the middle class requires building multiple flows of money, not waiting for a single paycheck to save you. Step 7. They work hard, but don't work smart. The middle class has been sold the lie that hard work alone equals success. They grind, they hustle, they put in long hours, and yet, at the end of the month, they are still broke. The problem isn't effort. The problem is direction. Working hard in the wrong system only makes you tired, not rich. Wealthy people work smart. They leverage time, technology, and people. They delegate tasks, automate systems, and focus on strategy, not just labor. They understand that a single smart decision can earn more than years of sweat. The middle class, on the other hand, takes pride in working themselves to the bone. They brag about overtime, about how little they sleep, about how much they sacrifice. But sacrifice without leverage only builds exhaustion, not wealth. The harsh truth is this: the world doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for value. And until you learn how to multiply your value through smarter systems, no amount of hard work will pull you out of the middle class. Step 8. They value appearances over substance. The middle class is obsessed with looking successful instead of being successful. They want the Instagram lifestyle, the new car, the designer clothes, the vacations that scream wealth, even if it's all funded by debt. They sacrifice real financial freedom just to impress people who don't care. Wealthy people don't play that game. They understand that wealth whispers, while fake success screams. The millionaire in the hoodie driving a 5-year-old car is often richer than the neighbor with the luxury car and maxed out credit cards. The middle class lives for appearances. The wealthy live for results. This obsession with looking rich keeps the middle class stuck. They drain their resources into status symbols instead of investments. They rent lifestyles instead of building legacies. And in the end, they have nothing to show but pictures, payments, and regrets. If you want to escape the middle class, stop caring about appearances and start building real substance. Step 9. They avoid financial education. The middle class spends years studying math, science, and history, but almost no time learning how money actually works. They know how to solve equations, but not how to manage debt. They can memorize dates from history, but not how compound interest builds wealth. They graduate with degrees, but no financial literacy. The wealthy treat financial education like oxygen. They read books on money, study investments, learn about taxes, and understand how the system is designed. Because here's the truth: money flows to those who understand it. And the system is set up to favor those who play by the rules of wealth, not the rules of wages. Meanwhile, the middle class avoids financial education because they think it's too complicated. They rely on banks, employers, and governments to tell them what's best. But those institutions profit from their ignorance. If you want to break free, you must educate yourself. Because financial ignorance is the chain that locks you in the middle class. Step 10. They trade dreams for stability. Perhaps the harshest truth of all is this: the middle class kills their own dreams. They trade their passions, ambitions, and vision for something called stability. They wanted to start a business, but they settled for a safe job. They wanted to travel the world, but they settled for 2 weeks vacation. They wanted freedom, but they settled for a pension plan, if it even survives. The wealthy refuse to settle. They pursue dreams ruthlessly, knowing stability is an illusion. They understand that real security comes from building something of your own, not from waiting for permission. The middle class tells themselves they'll chase their dreams someday, but someday never comes. And every year, the chains of stability grow tighter. Here's the harsh reality: life is short, and stability is a lie. If you trade your dreams for comfort, you'll wake up one day realizing you never truly lived. The wealthy choose freedom over fear, and that's why they escape the middle class while others stay trapped forever. So, here we are. 10 brutal truths, 10 invisible chains that keep millions trapped in the middle class. You've seen them now, living paycheck to paycheck, fearing risk, avoiding responsibility, clinging to a single income, working hard but not smart, chasing appearances, ignoring financial education. And worst of all, trading dreams for stability. These are not small mistakes. They are life sentences if left unchecked. The middle class thinks they are safe, but safety is an illusion. The system was not built to make you rich. It was built to keep you just comfortable enough to keep working. That's why so many people spend decades running on the hamster wheel, never realizing the cage door was open all along. But here's the secret: awareness is power. Once you see the trap, you can escape it. And escape doesn't happen by accident. It happens by choice. Every wealthy person you admire once stood exactly where you are now. The difference? They stopped accepting the middle-class script and started writing their own. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it takes courage. But what's scarier? Facing discomfort for a few years or wasting your entire life in quiet desperation? What's harder? Taking a calculated risk now or lying on your deathbed realizing you never lived your own dream? The harsh truth is this. If you want to rise above the middle class, you must act differently, think differently, and commit to building a life of freedom. Because nobody is coming to save you. Not your job, not the government, not the economy. The only person who can rewrite your future is staring back at you in the mirror. Now, you've invested time in hearing these truths. Don't let them fade away. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. So here's your challenge. Pick one of the 10 steps and act on it today. Start small if you must, but start. Because every day you delay, the chains of the middle class grow tighter. And if you're ready to go even deeper, to understand the single greatest force that separates the wealthy from everyone else, then don't miss our next video on the power of compounding, how the rich multiply wealth while you sleep. That video will show you why the rich keep getting richer and how you can harness the same unstoppable force to change your financial destiny. This is your turning point. This is your wake-up call. The harsh truth is most people will never escape the middle class. But you? You've seen the game. You know the rules. The only question left is, what will you do about it?